I see you out there. Well, we were talking about it in the back. Larry and I were FX dropping the clipped show, right?
Yeah.
That started last night. I didn't watch it. As I told those guys, I'm one of those people these days that's got to like let 4 or 5 episodes load up before I actually start it. Because if it's good, then I'm hooked.
You want to binge.
But I'm going to forget about it. You know what I mean? I'm going to forget about it 3 weeks later when we're in the heart of the NBA Finals.
That's a good point.
So my point of that was, I think that was pretty targeted. They knew exactly what was going on sports-wise last night.
It's like, this day where there's literally nothing. I watched the new 30 for 30 that came out on the Vancouver 2011 riots that happened after Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final. I thought it was fascinating. Great doc. I would recommend. And it really just resonated for me because we were basically the same age, Kelly, of all those rioters who then got convicted and who had their lives just totally turned upside down. And I'm like, what was I doing at 17? Probably not anything positive for society. Like, you realize how easy that could have been anybody who was young in that situation.
Yeah, I did watch about 15 minutes of that as well, and I don't think I needed to watch any more of it because I was.
You kind of got the gist.
I was kind of beaten down with depression of that. Yeah, like exactly what you said. Of like, man, like some of these people's lives were completely ruined, and I'm not saying what they did was right or okay, but. Like you said, would I have been right there in the middle of it if I was up there? Yeah, probably. I think that's probably safe
like they deserved all the punishment that happened, but you could it made it very, very real and relatable to see. Yes. Oh yeah, you had a few drinks in your system, and all of a sudden you're in downtown with thousands of people, and they're overturning cars, and next thing you know, your life is upended. Anyway, that was how I spent my Tuesday night. So fun. I do recommend that doc, though. It was very well done. As far as what actually happened in the sports world yesterday, really the biggest thing in what was otherwise just a chalky French Open day, Kelly, was the news on Novak Djokovic. We talked on air early in the morning when he officially withdrew from the tournament, then announces later in the day he will be having surgery today on a torn meniscus. So it wasn't just simply wear and tear, Kelly. There was, after the testing, real injury here. And what more so than anything jumps out to me from this perspective on the betting front, now Djokovic is now very much up in the air, his status for Wimbledon, which there's not that much of a run-up in the grass court season. It's the quickest season of all of the tennis calendar. Wimbledon's in essentially a month, and Djokovic is the third betting favorite right now, plus 225. Then you have the Olympics right after that, which is back on the clay. At Roland Garros, Djokovic, I just was looking at BetUS has these odds up. He was 2-1, the second favorite to win the Olympics. I mean, there's a lot of question marks now for really the last of the big three, who is, at least until a couple days ago, pretty much fully healthy and at least in close to top form, even though Djokovic had dropped a bit of a level. Yeah,
I don't want to steal your words because we were talking about it lightly before the show, and you didn't say this, but starting to feel like the end of the era.
It's you can see there is light. I would say for the non-big three players, like that light of the end of the tunnel is getting brighter and brighter.
Right, yeah.
You can see it now if you are a Alcaraz Sinner and you are like, yeah, you know what, I might not have to worry about these guys for too much longer. It's a weird, sobering reality though for us as tennis fans.
Yeah.
Because when Federer retires, it was very sad, bittersweet, but you're like, well, there's still Nadal and there's Djokovic.
Right,
we still have
exactly. You have
two
dominant
of the greats.
Players, yeah.
And now Nadal, where he is at, we're pretty close to Djokovic being the last one, and with this latest injury, you just don't know. This stuff can happen so quick. The fact that Djokovic has had such a longevity, even to this point, as a near 40-year-old, has been nothing short of remarkable. And now what's next?
Yeah, I don't even. I mean, it's still a lot to learn on the timetable for recovery and everything for him. But I mean, geez, I would think you're skipping Wimbledon at least, and aren't you just focusing? Might as well stay on clay if you're him, right? Like, not even. I know that's not his best surface, and he's much better on grass. But man, dealing through this type of injury, it's gonna be interesting. I mean, initial thoughts? Did we see him at all this summer?
I would assume no at Wimbledon. I would hold out that because the Olympics is the last thing for him on his ledger. Drew Dinsick, who we had on yesterday, has made this point before on Gil's podcast of that might be the thing that actually matters to him the most this summer. I would not put it past him to come back and at least give it a shot for Roland Garros at the Olympics, but
you're not a doctor.
I'm not a doctor. I have no idea. That's just my guess.
Just play one on TV.
I'm the one who guessed that Federer would take a full year off and try to make and try to rehab for Wimbledon, and instead he was like, yeah, actually, no, I'm done. I'm retiring at the end of Laver Cup, which nobody watches. And then he was like, but I mean, it's his tournament, so he decided to hang it up. The one match going on right now, great match between Jasmine Paolini and Elena Rybakina in the women's quarterfinal. We did see the first 2 quarters yesterday. Iga Swiatek easily advancing along with Coco Gauff. Those two match up tomorrow, and it is Swiatek minus 800 against one of the top players in the world, Coco Gauff. Swiatek rolling so far as they are on serve. In the third set, though, Rybakina up 3-2 in the third on Jasmine Paolini. Rybakina was a consensus minus 370 favorite today. Second matchup, Mira Andreeva and Arina Sabalenka. Sabalenka about a $5 favorite in that one as well.
If anybody's watching it at home, I need a screenshot from whenever you see Matt Brown in the crowd, because he is there right now.
Oh, really?
It says Matt Brown's tour across Europe continues.
Jeez. So he survived the windswept environs of Scotland golf.
And showed up at the French Open.
And just showed up with probably an ascot and a cigar at the French Open.
I would actually really like to picture Matt in France.
Ascot, beret, I don't know. Something like that. Maybe all of the above. I don't know.
Maybe all of them, yeah.
So on the Major League Baseball, as much as that was really the one sport last night, it was fortunately a good night for us, and all the bets were early we had, Kelly. So that's why it was a weird feeling being like 7 p.m. Pacific and have nothing left to sweat. But the big development, at least betting-wise, I think overall now long-term was in the AL Cy Young race, where Luis Gil, I don't know if Gil considers Luis Gil like a brother from another mother.
We had that talk on this show already. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I figured.
I'm struggling with a couple last names. I'm struggling with his and Pages this year.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. You keep working on it, though.
Yeah, I'll keep working on it.
As a play-by-play guy, I'm here to help you out.
Thanks, man.
So here from Katie Sharp, here are the 2 pitchers with a sub .65 ERA, 50-plus strikeouts, and 15 or fewer hits allowed in any 7-game span since ERA became official in 1913. The 2 are Jacob deGrom in 2021, NL Cy Young winner, and 2024, Luis Gil. That's a pretty impressive run, as he had another splendid start last night. Yankees get a 3-1 win. The other here, so the 44 and 2/3 innings pitched, it's 50 Ks, .60 ERA, .67 WHIP, 1.82 WHIP. This is from Underdog MLB, lowest by a Yankee starting pitcher through 12 starts since 1985. I mean, so we're talking about, not only is it a guy with just ridiculous video game numbers, but it's in a big market. It's a team that's playing really good baseball, the New York Yankees. And it's also a guy that, so as a result of that, he fits a storyline for a guy coming out of nowhere here. And for bettors, it's enticing because he's had really, really long odds. Now, those got basically cut in half overnight. He's down to 18-1. But still, this is a pitcher who is 5th, 6th on the odds board, depending on where you shop. And it's not like any of these races, especially AL Cy Young, by any means have like the most obvious clear-cut front-runner where, sure, Tariq Skubal is the favorite, but do you really trust him to continue that form over a full 162-game season?
Yeah. I think the other thing with this is, like, we don't talk about this much, because I think we are at a point in Major League Baseball where there are stats that we can look at and we know are more important than others, but it's hard. I think it's difficult when you get to the end of the season to ignore, like, he's 8-1, right? Like, it's his record, his pitching.
There is that.
Like, that is, it's going to be hard to ignore when you have these good pitchers on these great teams and they're able to rack up those wins. Like, it is something that's tough to completely ignore at the end of a season. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting.
It's the thing, goes back to what I asked Mark Borchard about when he was on a couple days ago. These pitchers that consistently, Justin Verlander was the topic of this, who consistently outpitch their peripherals and their advanced stats. So Verlander, 5 of the last 6 years, his ERA has been lower than his expected fielding independent pitching. And it kind of goes into talk about there might be regression, but it doesn't mean, A, that is doomed to happen in a player's next start, and B, it doesn't mean that in a specific season it is just doomed to fully regress all the way back to that mean. So you look at Gil, for example, 178 BABIP, which is just unbelievably low. You would expect more balls in play that would fall for hits against him. 182 ERA, 355 xFIP. At the same time, he's striking out over 11 batters a 9, and a 9-inning stretch here. 11 Ks per 9, really, really good. Guy is elite swing and miss stuff. So am I really to say, just because I reel off those numbers, am I to say that this guy is just destined to fall apart? There's no way you can continue this streak. I don't know, and it's something that at least bears, in a season where you don't have anybody approaching those sort of dominant numbers, and the couple guys who did were really on the NL side and are now starting to fall off a little bit, looking at Shota Imanaga, who's had a couple of bad starts now after his great beginning to the season. That's where I look at it and go, it's at least reasonable when you have a guy who is already married into the logic of narrative street, right, with a big market and a really good team, that now if you at least believe that, okay, there's not any other pitcher in here that you really feel like is at just a whole other level above, and there's really nobody so far right now that has proven that. You have name value, but not actually statistical value. Like, it's not the worst thought in the world to have of, oh, this guy could actually do this.
Yeah, I mean, I'll bring it back up with this. I mean, Skubal, is that a fair price on him right now? I mean, it's June 5th. He's plus 150. That's it.
That's really low.
Okay.
I mean, he's an outstanding pitcher.
And he's having a great season,
year.
Yes.
I'm kind of the camp on those guys. Like, if I'm making a bet on that, and it's not a guy who's completely proven. Skubal's been he's been around. It's not like he's come out of nowhere. But for pitchers like that who are having the career season, and it's June, and we are still not even yet halfway, it's hard for me to buy into that price as opposed to a guy who's, look, like I said, I don't think they're going to continue this, but to that level, but it's 18-1. It's a much longer price to get, as much as that price did shorten and cut in half over the last 24 hours. When we come back, still a lot to get to here on A Numbers Game. We'll break down the NBA Finals a little more in depth with our senior NBA analyst, Jonathan Von Tobel. He stops by right after this.
A Numbers Game on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Hey, we have a special spring offer for you right now. It is VSiN Subscribe. VSiN.com/subscribe. Normally, $240 is our annual price on that, but right now, for a limited time, $199 is the annual price, and you get an extra month on top of that. It's 13 months for $199. Just go to VSiN.com/subscribe. Use our promo code ANG. This offer will expire soon, so check that out for all of our betting splits, pro tips, and betting guides, and much more. VSiN.com/subscribe. As we're back on A Numbers Game, I had to kind of wing that read, Kelly, because I was pulling up Fangraphs in incognito mode, and it made my computer just basically explode. So, did my best. Jonathan Von Tobel knows all about Fangraphs. I don't know in incognito mode or not, but anyway. Little peel behind the curtain here. So we go out to our progressive guest slide, talking with JVT, who we were talking yesterday. Kelly and I, we discovered the claim jumper at Golden Nugget for some breakfast. I don't know if JVT is, if you are aware of that great spot downtown here in Vegas, or if you've also used Fangraphs in incognito mode. I figured between the two, one of those you could relate to. So I was just taking my best guess here.
Yeah, I've been to a claim jumper for a while. I didn't know that they were still around out here.
Neither did I until yesterday. Yeah.
I didn't know it was a chain until Ben Wilson told me that. So
I'd last been to one in Fresno in 2006, so that was the extent of my.
They used to have one up on like Charleston and Rampart up here that we used to go to all the time. Big fan of the tortilla soup. They have a good tortilla soup.
All right, there we go. Hey, we learned something today. See, that was my goal. Learn something.
And we noted for next time.
Noted for next time. All right, the build up here to the NBA Finals, which is just it feels like it's been forever here, JVT. Almost a full week to wait. We're one sleep away from it getting underway. As far as the actual series price spreads, it's been pretty static since things first opened up. Boston -6.5 for Game 1 for the series, just over $2 favorites with Dallas in that plus 185 range. As you've kind of ruminated over this, dove deeper into the numbers here, what's been your biggest takeaway that maybe the general public is just missing about the series as a whole here coming in?
So I think maybe if we're going along that path, Ben, of like, what are we missing? I wrote about this in the series preview, which is, and the way I phrased it in summation of the series preview, which was, I think Boston's dominance is kind of hiding in plain sight. I think we're kind of we're kind of nitpicking with this run for Boston through the Eastern Conference Finals. When you look at this as a whole, this team was 12-2 straight up. Yes, they were only 7-7 against the spread in their 14 games that they played. But one of their straight up losses was the Miami Heat's tying a franchise record for most threes made in a single playoff game. I think when you look at them from a net rating standpoint, the best non-garbage time net rating in the postseason by a mile. Second place team was OKC with just plus 6.3, 6.4. Boston was plus 10.2. This is a team that I think we have the collective such high expectations for that when they don't meet market expectations and they just go 7-7 ATS, that there's this thought that they're struggling. But in reality, I don't think they really are. And the other thing that I took away from that I think that we, the collective, are kind of missing, each of the last 2 years, Boston has greatly struggled in one category that has led to them failing into the postseason. That has been their performance in clutch time, right? Game within 5 minutes, within 5 points, 5 or fewer minutes left to go. and they were 4-0 in those games that went to clutch time. They had a plus 43.9 net rating in clutch minutes in those 4 games. So they answered that question. They've dominated their opponents statistically, and I think that's kind of what we're missing a bit. I think that there is this thought that we head into the NBA Finals. One team, Dallas, is performing at an extremely high level, and by expectations, they are. They're 12-4, straight up 11-5 against spread, something like that, and they have covered at a very high clip. But I don't think we should forget that Boston has been pretty darn good, and one of their losses was a historic performance that tied a franchise record for a single team.
The one thing I've been trying to dive a little bit deeper onto and figure out from my own handicapping perspective is just the path for Dallas here, who they have faced, and kind of the second leading scores, and how that compares with Boston, where if you look at some of the productivity here for the opponents Dallas has faced, since the general narrative is, well, okay, much tougher path. You go through the West, it's just a gauntlet. But how do you kind of stack up if you're comparing, say, a Jaylen Brown as a number 2 next to a Jason Tatum, comparing him to really the lack of statistical performance that these other number 2s, you can go back to, how Karl Anthony Towns struggled last series, and it even went deeper than that in series past for those number 2s against Dallas, and how that might change just the defensive formation that we see out of the Mavericks, considering they have been so good in overall advanced stats, yet I can't totally get there as far as who they've actually faced, and the number 2s really forcing them out of their comfort zone.
Yeah, I think that's fair when you look at it, right? When you talk about, go back to the Oklahoma City Thunder series, right? Jalen Williams did not perform up to the level that a lot of us know that he could perform. From a pure just shooting standpoint, Jalen Williams was absent in terms of what he did in the regular season to what he did in that series against Dallas for the OKC Thunder. For the Los Angeles Clippers, the number 2 was de facto number 1 because Paul George had to be the number 1 because Kawhi Leonard was hurt, and we know that James Harden, 2 games was great. The others, he kind of disappeared here. But I think if you zoom out even more, Ben, and you look at these opponents, what intrigues me, what you kind of alluded to there, is this is different also when you think about the way Dallas got here. They have gotten here because their 2 centers, specifically Derek Lively, has been awesome. They have been dominant, both defensively and offensively. Think about the teams that they have faced, though. Ivica Zubac at center. Chet Holmgren played center, right? He can shoot threes, but they also had Josh Giddey to play off of defensively. Then you look at Rudy Gobert at center. Those are traditional centers, or at the very least, guys in the front court you can play off of and hide your centers on, do whatever. In this matchup, you're taking on a team that's going to have a 5 that can shoot every single time when they're on the floor, whether it's Al Horford or Kristaps Porzingis. You're going to have 5 shooters on the floor at any one time when you're facing this team. And to your point, too, when you talk about defense, this is a team that I think is going to be a little bit more challenging to defend for Dallas because you've got 2 wings that you got to take care of in Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. You've got 2 very good backcourt pieces in Drew Holiday and Derek White that you have to defend as well. And this is a team that is going to hunt you mismatch-wise. They'll go after Luka Doncic. They'll go after Kyrie Irving. So I think everything, when you zoom out and you look at this, it's not a surprise to say because it's the NBA Finals, but this is such a different archetype of a team that Dallas is facing compared to the previous iterations of the squads that be up to this point, and I think that's going to provide them with a very big challenge.
Jonathan Von Tobel with us right now on our progressive guest line. Follow him at MeJVT. There's also the Kristaps Porzingis piece that goes right into what you're talking about here, where the report comes out yesterday, expected to be good to go, suiting up for tomorrow. We haven't seen any market movement yet on that. Kelly and I were talking about, do we see some late Boston money come in? Do we see that line get up to 7 tomorrow? I'm not sure yet as far as the status there of Porzingis here, but what do you expect just in general, at least starting out game 1 with his prop set? He's 6.3 rebounds per game there, and he's obviously in that 3rd, 4th category for some of the series leader props in those markets as well. And if there's anything worth betting on Porzingis, is that even a place you would go to, or is he kind of a stay away with the status unknown?
No, I mean, I think the market expected him to play. I think that's why you haven't seen that movement, right? I think these numbers were hung with the expectation he was going to be there for game 1. Every indication was that was going to be the case. In fact, if that series against Indiana had gone longer, it sounded like he was going to return there. So I think that the market had settled in because they knew that this was going to happen. I think he's huge for this series. I think when you go back to the point that we talked about, right? Again, playing a 5 that can shoot the way that he can. Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford did not have to face a threat like him. He is a quicker and better shooter than Chet Holmgren when it just comes to release, his ability to get up. Guys, go back to when they played post-trade deadline March 1st. That first quarter, immediately in that game, it was pick and pop, pick and pop, pick and pop. He had 3 3-pointers made in that first quarter. He ended up 4 of 8 from 3-point range in that game. He's going to be huge. He's going to force Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford to come out on the perimeter and defend, something they really have not had to do throughout this entire postseason. So I thought it was interesting. This is something I bet with him. It's a long shot, but I think it's going to be fun to sweat. By extension of that, I put a little on him at 20-1 to lead the series in 3-point makes. I think a big part of their game plan is going to be using that pick and pop to get these guys out of the paint, because that has been such a big strength for the Dallas Mavericks. And guys, you go back and you look at that March 1st matchup, if you're talking about pulling them out of the paint and how that worked for this team, you look at shots inside of 14 feet. Well, the Boston Celtics in that game went a combined 26 of 38, 68.4% in that area of the floor, because they were pulling those bigs out. They were able to get to the rim. I think Porzingis is going to be a massive part of this game plan for the Boston Celtics, game 1 and for the series. So I thought by that, a little bit of a higher probability than 20-1 to lead the series in 3-point make. So I took a little piece of him there.
Nice little long shot there. You can check out Jonathan Von Tobel, his write-ups, not only for the series and the series price, but also for some of these series leader markets, like we just talked about, Porzingis 20-1. Anything else that you have bet already, whether it is those series leaders or just game 1 in general here?
Yeah, so I did lay 1.5 games with the Boston Celtics in the series at Eva Bunny. I think that they are going to win the series. I think they can win this in 6 or fewer games. One of the ones that I'm actually, when I'm done with you guys, I'm going to add to the portfolio that I wrote this up yesterday. I liked it a lot, so I wanted to add this. Jaylen Brown and a Daniel Gafford head-to-head, and who's going to have more rebounds for the series. I'm going to bet Jaylen Brown here. And I think what's really, really fun about this is, first off, if we're going to talk, we had a series in which everybody talked about a particular center getting played off the floor. I think Gafford's in danger of getting played off the floor in this series. We've already saw his minutes decrease, right? In the Clipper series, he averaged 18. In the Timberwolves series, in the 3 games in which Derek Lively played, because remember, he got hurt in one, missed another, he only averaged about 20. I think that when you're talking about somebody who's going to get its minutes replaced by Maxi Kleber, because they're going to need a small ball 5 at some point, it's Daniel Gafford. He's already not a good rebounder. Jaylen Brown's going to have a massive edge in terms of minutes, and he's a good rebounder for his position. So head-to-head for the series, more rebounds. Jaylen Brown about -105 is going to be something I'm going to add as well.
-105 as well. Not bad. Jonathan Von Tobel, senior NBA analyst here at the network, joining us on ANG. Follow him at JVT. Good stuff, man. It's going to be. I'm just excited that we get game 1 finally here after all this time. So we will be checking in with you very, very often. You can catch JVT on VSiN Primetime as well, 6 to 9 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday with Tim Murray. Good to see you, man.
Thanks, guys.
As we continue, Kelly, we'll dive deeper into. We'll have more NBA Finals thoughts here when we come back. Also, some college baseball super regional thoughts. I did make 1 bet. We can tee that up next. We did make a bet. We finally got odds out, so that's great. We'll update you here on a French Open quarter that might see an upset. Jasmine Paolini serving for the match. We'll update you on that when we return.
A numbers game on VSiN, the sports betting network.
This segment of A Numbers Game is brought to you by ZYN nicotine pouches. America's #1 nicotine pouch that requires no timeouts or half times. ZYN is a smoke-free, spit-free, hassle-free nicotine pouch that can be enjoyed anywhere, anytime. It's available in 10 varieties and 2 strengths and delivers up to 1 hour of nicotine satisfaction. Find your ZYN at your local convenience store or online at zyn.com. That's ZYN.com. Warning, this product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical.
As we continue on the Wednesday edition of A Numbers Game, checking in on some of our tweets, I wanted to bring this up, Kelly, from last night after we'd had Brian ask about the potential for a multi-player cross-sport parlay for the Olympics with some of these favorites here. And our guy J-Rod, he at least found three of these options here. Iga Swiatek, Scotty Scheffler, and Nelly Korda to all win their gold medal in their respective events at the Olympics coming up. 34-1. That parlay pays out.
Okay, I like it.
It was Bet Rivers, Louisiana.
I don't hate it.
Fun thing to sweat.
Fun thing to sweat. That's right.
I mean, anyway, the handicap of the golf especially will be fascinating there. And Tripp Tepper pointed out last night that they played the DP World Tour event there last year as well, the Kazoo Open. So there's even more data points to look at.
Yeah, no, that will be good. Wes and I were talking new long shots.
New long shot spot out. Yep.
That is up. We were talking about it on the podcast yesterday, a little before we recorded and a little on the podcast. But we're in this series right now where we've got 3 straight weeks of elevated events, including a major, right? So Memorial this week, U.S. Open next week, Travelers the week after, where you're going to have these great fields, and it's going to be an awesome few weeks of golf. I'm a little concerned what the fields are going to look like, Ben, between then and when the Open gets played.
Right.
And so I think it's going to be really nice having the Olympics on the back end of the golf season, where we have kind of a fifth major. I guess.
Sure thing. No question on that. We will talk the Memorial in a little bit because Kelly Bidlin, as you mentioned, with Wes Reynolds, fresh episode of Long Shots available now wherever you get your podcast. We'll talk about that
that's
here.
That's what I did last night.
Okay. That's what you were doing. You were being productive. I was just okay. I was not. We'll talk about that in about a half hour or so. Just recapping again, if you're just joining us, we had Jonathan Von Tobel on breaking down NBA Finals here as we've continued to try to look at new angles every single day in the run-up, on our show at least, to the NBA Finals Game 1 tomorrow night. And I think JVT bringing up just a fascinating angle now that we have such a robust prop menu where if there are specific players that you might believe based on matchup could see fewer minutes, as a result, there are some head-to-head matchups that do look really, really palatable. And the one that he brought up, but you're a fan of, is the Jaylen Brown over Daniel Gafford in the head-to-head rebounding market.
Especially since he said that was like minus 105, I think he said.
He did.
I mean, you're talking. Yeah, I think he's spot on. The matchup conversation is so interesting. I love talking to all these different sharp NBA minds about this series too, because I think he's right from the Boston standpoint on when Boston's on offense of what they've done all year and what they're going to look to do. And they're always 5 out and stretch the floor, and that's how they test these defenses. And yes, where Dallas has made such an incredible improvement on their defensively has really been in that rim protection and so much with the centers. So I agree with him. That's how Boston's going to play. They're going to pull some of those centers out to the 3-point line to try to defend, or further out of the paint at least, especially if Porzingis is in, assuming he's in. I do think this is going to lead to us seeing. I think Gafford's going to continue to start. Is there a point in this series where Gafford's not in the starting lineup anymore? Possibly, Ben. I do think this is the series where you're going to start to see a heavy minutes difference between Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford because of the athleticism of Lively. It will let him to be able to close out a little bit easier. So I think that part is all accurate. I do like the bet. I'm going to bet it today as well. I'm glad he found that. It's already on my to-do list today, Ben, but there's so many prop options out there. You got to spend the time going through every book to see what they have up. The one I want to bring up, because I feel like this is the part nobody wants to talk about. It's the other side of the ball. Okay, when Dallas is on offense, I have no idea why we should expect anything different from what they've been doing. Luka has been dominant this entire playoffs. That pick and roll action, I understand that there are several good perimeter defenders on Boston. There were several good perimeter defenders on Minnesota, and they had the defensive player of the year in Rudy Gobert on that back line, and they got destroyed by the Luka Doncic pick and roll action. I don't really expect that to change. So we were kind of talking total yesterday. Mm-hmm. That was one question I was going to try to get in JVT at the end. We kind of just ran out of time. I think I think overs early could be a look here. I think there's going to be take some time for Boston to adjust to that and Dallas to adjust to what Boston's doing on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, to that exact point, the more I think about and ruminate on this series, it feels to me like instead, these Dallas bets for the full series, I could easily see a world in which those adjustments, and as Porzingis integrates more comfortably back into the fold here and gets some more game action under his belt, this becomes a really tough series the later it goes, Kelly. And I almost wonder if, aside from what we talked about earlier in the week, which is if you like Dallas and have conviction on them, you just bet Luka Doncic to win Finals MVP at a better price than the series price right now. But as an aside to that, I almost wonder if just betting Dallas on these inflated spreads, games 1 and 2, where they're on the road and you're getting more points, if that's just not the way to bet this year, and not having to tie up money into the full series where clearly, based on the numbers, Boston has been the better team, deserve to be the favorites. Long-term over the 6 or 7 games, do they ultimately make enough adjustments that make this really, really hard and tough sledding on Dallas, especially if we haven't even mentioned Luka Doncic, how he's carried injuries through the postseason with how reliant they are on him. Let's say something like that happens in game 2 or 3, and all of a sudden he's less than 100%. That's where I've kind of settled in on this, where it's like, you know what, instead of I still like Dallas in general, but I can see where the matchup is going to get a lot tougher for them as the series continues. And I'm almost more inclined to just say, hey, let me just get some spread bets out there, games 1 and 2, and let's reassess where we're at after that point.
Yeah, I thought that was a great conversation with Drew yesterday about that. And I probably would, if you're approaching things at this point, would probably be attacking Dallas game to game if that's the side you are interested in. I don't want to say I disagree, but I think the longer this series goes, I just like every other series before, I think it's advantage Dallas. I think their end game situations, if you're putting yourself in that position time and time again, and JVT's right. The clutch time minutes have been so much better for Boston here recently. I'm not going to take anything away from them, with opponents they've played or anything like that. But, oh, my gosh, my trust level with Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic is so much higher than Tatum and Brown and everybody else that they're going to be able to throw on the other end. I think longer games go that are close and longer this series goes, it's advantage Dallas.
And that's why I think we've heard a lot of the general sentiment be if you like Boston, you're betting them to cover the full game and a half, or you're betting these alts like under 5.5 games. Yep. That's sort of the thought where you're getting even money to plus money payouts on that. And you are also making kind of tying in what you're talking about, Kelly, that general assumption, right?
The other one I'd be careful with Boston though is one of the things that they do on purpose. They try to beat and a lot of people talk about this, but they try to beat you with the math game, right? It's a 3 is more valuable than a 2. We're going to take a lot of 3s. That's what they do on offense. JVT brought up a couple of them, but what are these games that we see them lose sometimes that we're all just banging our head? What are you doing out there? It's because they have poor shooting nights from 3 while another team gets hot from 3. But if you shoot that many 3s, that's going to happen. So when we talk about 7-game series, I think it's almost unfair to expect a team like the Boston Celtics to roll or sweep in any series. All I'm saying is, could they win in 5? Could they win in 6? If you told me this ended in 5 or 6, Ben, I would still say it's probably Boston. But I think this team, for as much as we kill them for losing some of these games, I think it's just a math thing that at a certain point they're going to run into a game where they don't shoot well and the other team does shoot very well, and they lose. So I have a very hard time ever getting on the side of Boston sweeping anybody as long as they currently run out this current formation of this team.
Well, and how much do you also, on the opposite side of that, because of what Dallas has done, you go, there's just going to be at least one game where Doncic is at a level, he's already been so good to begin with, Kelly, where all the shots are going down. He's putting up 40.
Luka, yes.
It's nuclear Luka. You almost have to bake that in, I feel like, for a game. Now, does that happen in the same game that Boston can't hit 3s, and maybe one of those home games for Dallas, they just win by 30 and it's a blowout? That's what's impossible to say. But that's why, to me, it seems like I'm with you. The conviction on, this will be a runaway one way or the other feels a little bit misguided. And it's why where I keep coming back to.
I don't think there's a lot of people saying that. I don't want to say that.
But we've heard it. Where I keep coming back to is, to me, the over 5.5 games makes a lot of sense as much as you are laying a price on that. And just, betting Dallas in game 1 and hoping you get a 7. If not, we have over 24 hours to see where the market goes on that. But I'd still be comfortable betting 6.5 if it's obvious the market is not going to budge right before post there tomorrow.
Circus went down to 6.
Circus down to 6, yeah.
So maybe only going that way at this point.
Could easily be going that way. That's, to me, a totally fine starting point for it, and you can adjust based on that, and you aren't tying up too much for the full series bets. That's kind of where I'm at as we stand here just over 24 hours out.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And, I will just quickly to recap kind of what I've bet so far. So I did take a piece of Mavs in 6.
Yeah.
Just think that's if Mavericks win, most likely scenario, they're winning back at home in Game 6. So grab that that was close to 6-1 plus 590. Like we talked about already, I did bet Luka MVP. I'm already pot committed with some futures with Boston. But I thought Luka MVP price was just it was too much compared to what the series price was. And then Tatum to lead the series in rebounds, Tatum to lead the series in 3-pointers. And I'm going to bet that prop that JVT just bet.
Great bet. Jaylen Brown over Daniel Gafford, head-to-head rebounds in the series. So when we come back, Will Hill gives us his thoughts on the NBA Finals as well as the daily baseball slate right after this.
A numbers game on VSiN, the sports betting network.
We are so close to crowning an NBA champion with the action heating up on the court. It's even hotter at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. New to DraftKings, listen up. New customers can get a no-sweat bet up to $1,500. Just deposit at least $5, and you'll get a bonus bet back equal to your first bet if it doesn't hit. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app right now and use code VSIN. The crown is yours. Big upset of the day at the French Open. Jasmine Paolini, about a 3-1 dog, takes out Elena Rybakina, former Grand Slam champion at Wimbledon, 6-4 in the third, Kelly. So big win for Paolini. She'll take on the winner now of Mira Andreeva, Aryna Sabalenka. Sabalenka about a $5 favorite. They just walked out on court. We were we were making fun of the giant flight of stairs they have to walk to get out to center court at Philippe Chatrier there in
You
in
got
Paris.
money on your girl Sabs? Anybody call her that?
I mean, not today. Saba, not today.
Saba?
I mean, it's giantly priced favorite, and it's tough because I wouldn't bet her futures wise because I don't. She's not going to beat. It's going to be hard for her to beat Iga Swiatek. But
walking back what you said earlier in the week.
Yeah. There we go.
Trying
Propaganda,
to make friends now on the show.
propaganda, slander. I never said it would be easy. Never said it would be easy. We go out to our progressive guest line right now. Will Hill is standing by. Will and I were just playing a fun name game during the break, and apparently we were also learning that Will, like me, was a situational left-hander, although much, much better apparently than I was in high school. Because you pitched in college, Will.
Yeah, more than situation. You were only lefty guy. You didn't get to start nothing.
No, I got this. Well, they would put me in. I mean, it wasn't just lefty. They would put me in after the guy who threw like 88, which in high school is pretty fast, and I would just come in.
That is really fast.
I was topping out at 70, 71, and it was awesome. A lot of soft contact.
Hey, he got to get sunflower seeds for the bullpen, okay? That's an important
I got
job.
sunflower seeds for the
Someone's gotta
bullpen. We would sit in the bullpen and play these name games where you name like a random sports figure, and then you have to either say another sports figure with the same first name or last name. You can go in any direction, and we would just do it for hours. And then,
What an exciting time of life.
Exciting time of life. Anyway. But Will, you were also a pitcher. I didn't know this.
Yes, back in back in the glory days. And I didn't realize you had a girlfriend. I filled in for you and Kelly on Live Bet Sunday a couple weeks ago. You know how Dustin is. A lot of things come up. So your girlfriend actually got a lot of airtime
really?
A couple of Sundays ago. Surprisingly more appropriate than you would think, to be honest.
I'm shocked to hear appropriate and Dustin Sweetelson in the same sentence. So
Will's so talented, though, he could fill in for both of us.
Will filled in for both. He was us at the same time. That's very impressive. Well, I appreciate that. Well, I'm now curious to what Dustin said, but I'm glad to hear it was appropriate. My girlfriend met Dustin when he was wearing a ridiculous Halloween costume, actually, where he was shirtless with he had the collar around the neck thing, and it was like, hey, I'm Dustin, and I was just like, oh, God, welcome. Anyway, alas, here we are. So we're a day away. NBA Finals gets underway tomorrow. We're just giving our discussion, JVT, on earlier. Kelly and I kind of breaking down different props, how we would look to target and attack this year. Where do you stand just on the Boston, Dallas, the pricing here, and then the deeper down ways to potentially bet this and find some value?
Yeah, it's funny. There's this push and pull when you talk about the Celtics, where you have one side say, hey, they haven't played anybody. Their path has been a farce. And you have the other people say, yeah, but they went 12-2 in the playoffs, and you can only beat who's in front of you. So there's these contrasting points. And the thing is, if you're pro Boston, you're right. And if you're anti Boston, you're right. Everybody's right. Like, everybody's got a point. You say, hey, they did this and this, but I still don't trust them. Like, I can't argue with any of it. Everybody's got a good point, which makes such a fascinating series. I landed on Boston in 7. I just think I get that people, first of all, if you're betting Dallas, and I knew there'd be a lot of sentiment for Dallas, Boston hasn't looked impressive. You're getting almost 2-1 with Dallas, and you're getting the best player. And look, the public, most people aren't going to just lay minus 230, minus 250 on a series price. If they like Boston, they'll find some other way to play it. So there's only going to be sharp money on Dallas, I figured, because it was pretty clear for weeks, if not months, Boston was going to be in the series. So, I mean, you're just so late to the party if you're playing Boston here. But the two best players versus the two best players on each side, the Dallas guys are really good. Maybe you favor them. But after that, if you're just drafting players neighborhood style, playground style, the next 3 guys, maybe 4 guys are all Celtics when you look at White, Porzingis, Holiday, and some order. So you're talking 5 of the best 7 players probably on the Celtics. You do have home court, which I know home court hasn't meant a lot. But I just like this idea for Boston that all of their guys are shooters, and you can pull Dallas away from the basket in a way these other teams couldn't. Minnesota had Gobert on the court. Dallas didn't have to guard Gobert on the perimeter. OKC had Josh Giddey on the floor. You didn't have to guard Giddey away from the floor. There's not going to be these guys on Boston that you can't that you can just leave alone, that you don't have to guard. So I think the 5-out nature of Boston gives them the advantage. I'm picking it in 7. Would I be shocked? Hey, 3 minutes to go in a game 7. Do I feel great about my pick? Probably not. But I think we're looking at a longer series. I think it'll be a competitive series. It's actually been since 2016, since we've had a game 7 in the finals. Right. It's a pretty long time to go. So I'm going to go Boston at 7. You can get that at plus 350. You could just take Dallas plus a game and a half. There's different ways to play it. I'm okay with either one. Maybe split half a unit on each one. I do also like. I'm curious if you guys discuss this. rebounds leader for the series. Derek Lively's 12-1. I was doing a show the other night with Scott Seidenberg, our old friend, who's 14-1. I said I love that. I didn't fire on it. I did grab 12-1 this morning, so I missed the best number there. But he's turned into a rebounding machine. The 3 games he was healthy against Minnesota, he grabbed 28 rebounds. The 2 prior games against OKC, I think he had 11 and 15. So, and look, he was on pace to maybe steal that series rebound leader last series against Gobert. That's with Gobert on the floor. So at 12-1, I feel like I'm missing something there. I know the minutes and the usage may be an issue, but 12-1, I think that's a good bet too.
We're talking about how the usage. It sounds like if anything, it's Daniel Gafford who will lose minutes based on the matchup in this series. So I don't mind it. I was kind of looking, Kelly, at the that
I don't hate it
was
either.
the
I
Lively.
Tatum in this
You did, yeah. Kelly hammered Tatum, but in the Lively versus the Lively Porzingis, the head-to-head, that'll be interesting too because you'll get Lively will be a dog price based on those futures, and again with the unknown on Porzingis and how impactful of a rebounder he ends up being, especially when they work him back out of from injury. I think that could be an alternative way too, Will, to bet that as well, assuming you can find that prop out there amidst the the sea of prop options that are available.
Yeah, there's so much. I mean, it's good because they can't price everything properly when you have this many markets. It's almost like you break down these baseball games. There's so many different ways to bet them where, hey, from a book's perspective, the more they put out, the more likely they are to make a mistake. But man, you better have some free time on your hands if you're going to go through all this stuff because there are just so many different ways to attack. And that's within one book. Then you want to start comparing books and comparing shots. I mean, you could just sit here spending all day on one prop, on one, sort of market. There's a lot to dig through, which is a good thing.
Follow him at not the Will Hill, joining us, VSiN contributor Will Hill on the NBA Finals as well. As some Major League Baseball, you're out on the East Coast here, and as a Yankee, someone who's watching a lot of Yankee baseball right now, Luis Gil, what he's continuing to do is just nothing short of amazing. He is now 18-1 AL Cy Young. He just moved to the favorite to win AL Rookie of the Year here at DraftKings, plus 140. The question with guys like that, it's always sustainability. How much do you see that in a guy who's putting up insane numbers, .60 ERA here through his last 7 starts?
Yeah, I don't know that there's a great bet at this moment. I always consult our friend Jason Weingarten on all these futures, and I remember it was 2 weeks ago. He's 14-1 for Rookie of the Year. I said, what do you think of this? This is pretty good. And he goes, yeah, I just worry about the innings, which I do too because he's young. He's coming off. I think he had Tommy John last year, where maybe they put him in the bullpen, maybe they start skipping him. That's always a concern. So I didn't fire on the 14-1, and now I'm just absolute regret, FOMO, all of that stuff. I don't know. I mean, can you really bet him 18-1 for Cy Young? Probably not. Rookie of the Year, you're going to lay a minus price. I think you probably missed your chances here, and sometimes that just happens. I don't want to chase it here where I'm betting the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th best number. Maybe he wins one of them. I mean, he certainly got a really good chase to win Rookie of the Year. I think Cy Young would be a stretch, but I don't know. I just feel like you missed the best of the number.
Yeah.
That's how it goes sometimes.
It's Jason on in 20 minutes to talk about an AL Rookie of the Year bet he likes.
Jason Weingarten on in 20 minutes. That's a great. It's a great.
Maybe that number's long gone.
Maybe he still doesn't like a pitcher. He still thinks it's hard for pitchers to win, not to steal some of his thunder. But he's made good points where, like, look at the year Strider had a couple years ago. Strider still didn't win it. It's very rare. Your boy Devin Williams won it in the COVID year, but usually they defer to hitters. Now it's going to be tough in the National League to do that this year because you have Skeens, Yamamoto, Imanati. You have so many guys, Jared Jones. So a pitcher's probably going to win it in the National League, but it is usually biased towards the hitters for whatever reason.
That's why I've heard a lot of people gravitate toward a Milwaukee Brewer, Joey Ortiz, who's a long shot double digits, having a great year at the plate, and there's just not many other hitters who are in that ilk. Anything, Will, on the baseball card that sticks out to you today that you like?
I don't know if you shop around, you can find a plus price on the Dodgers against the Pirates, which doesn't sound right when you say it out loud.
Skeens Day.
It is Skeens Day. I think that's probably a little bit overvalued. I don't have the nerve to go under on Skeens strikeouts again, although I always feel like with this stuff, it's naturally inflated, overpriced, because people just want to bet the over on somebody that's this public. But I'll bet the Dodgers here at a pretty reasonable price. Although I must say, I've been watching them a lot the last couple of weeks. You think of the Dodgers, you think offense. You don't think of that being as a team that needs a couple of bats. But after the first 3 or 4 guys in the lineup, there really is a drop-off where they could use some offense. They haven't hit. They haven't scored when Glasnow has pitched. So it's an interesting thing to keep an eye on there.
Dodgers have not 4 straight games where the Dodgers have scored 4 runs or less here. 1-0 loss last night to Pittsburgh. You can find them plus 102 at Circa if you shop around. That's the best price in the market.
Colorado too, by the way.
I know,
which is crazy.
I know, it's crazy. Will Hill, always great to see him. Noted situational left-handed college baseball pitcher. Will Hill, good to see you, man.
See you guys. Thanks for having me.
When we continue, time to reset, get Kelly's thoughts on the Memorial. We'll break down my super regional bet in college baseball, update the French Open, and have much more still to come. Hour number 2 of A Numbers Game.
We're this close to crowning an NBA champ, and with the action heating up on the court, it's even hotter at DraftKings